Maybe. Okay, we are actually live with Genesis Office Hours, episode number 14, starring Jason Hobbs and Chris Right On Time Ford. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And sorry for the technical difficulties, but it worked out nicely because Rob and the guys from WP Bacon were just wrapping up their podcast. So if you're podcast hopping this afternoon or this evening, we welcome you and thank you for listening with us. We know you have many podcasts that you can listen to. I think I've been on too many airplanes lately. Jason, you've gone fuzzy in the background. Are you playing with Google Hangout effects?
No, I'm trying to be like Beach Press last week. All right.
If I had a sound effect board, you get a rim shot for that. All right, Chris, you can hear us all right? You're good over there?
Yep, I can hear you. I'm just setting up everything that got unset when I had to restart.
Fantastic. Well, for those of you who don't know Jason Hobbs, he is the man behind GenesisGoodies.com. And then Chris Ford is the branding and marketing genius behind CreativityIncluded.com. Jason, tell us a little more about yourself.
Genesis Goodies, basically that's about it. I mean, I do marketing, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's about it.
All right. So what are the best kinds of questions that people could ask you?
18 years marketing experience. Absolutely love marketing. Real familiar with Genesis, WordPress, that type of thing. Obviously, anything with Dynamic Website Builder, I'm extremely comfortable with it because I'm not a developer, but I do play one on TV on occasion. So I'm real comfortable with that. And make dynamic skins, which if you want, you can go buy a bunch of them from Genesis Goodies. Even if you don't use them, we don't care. And that's about it.
Sweet. And Chris.
Hang on a second. Can you hear me?
Tell the world about yourself.
My name's Chris Ford. I run my own one-person business, Creativity Included, and we do brand, user experience, and design strategies. And we love to work with WordPress startups. Well, I do. That's the real we. My wife used to be my COO and started doing her thing instead, so I slip into we sometimes.
Cool.
And that just sounded great, didn't it?
Somebody's asking if they can
sometimes
turn off the sound in the bottom of the chat, and you can underneath the chat, which, by the way, if you haven't joined us in chat, it's at chatroll.com/genesis-office-hours. And there's a little sound icon underneath there where you can toggle that sound on and off. So the chat that I just mentioned, that's where all the great conversation takes place and where you can submit your questions for myself and Jason and Chris. And then to watch the video stream or participate in the chat, you can also do that at carrydills.com/GOH, as in Genesis Office Hours. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. I think we've got a question from Angela here. She's looking for a great fiction author theme. Any suggestions for a Genesis theme for authors? Now, Angela, I'm not going to answer your question directly first because I want to ask Chris something. Chris, you are working with something called the Aesop Story Engine.
Yeah, it's a new plugin by Nick Haskins, and it lets you tell if you've ever seen like the New York Times snowfall, which is a really big trend right now, where you have like parallax images, and when you scroll past video, it auto starts, so you can sell a lot richer story. And the cool thing about that is it's a plugin, so it works with any theme out there. You're probably going to have to do a few little tweaks to it because your main container has to be 100% width in order to get like the full width parallax images and things like that. But it's pretty sweet.
Okay, so that when Angela, when you said author, that was kind of my first thought. Now, if this is promoting a book versus actually just a publishing a way to publish material, then that's probably not the theme for you. But I don't know, Jason, you got any in all the skins that you've seen and themes that you've seen, any one that you'd recommend?
Unfortunately, no. The majority of the themes and skins have been real generic. There's a few of the Genesis themes that definitely would translate well, especially if you're doing like a book announcement type of thing, but there's nothing that really jumps out as far as, like I've heard a little bit about, is it ASOP engine or ASOP?
Yeah, that's the plugin.
Oh, okay.
So,
in fact, I actually just released a theme for that. I partnered up with Nick, and so he did the coding, and I did kind of the front end stuff. And so they are starting to make more of them, and I would love to talk about Genesisizing something like that, so that there are also options for people who like using the Genesis framework. So we'll see what happens with that.
Man, if only you knew a Genesis theme developer who could...
I know, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So Andrea from Nuts and Bolts Media, who just did a relaunch on her site this week, wants to know from both of you guys resources for writing copy. She's feeling a little used car salesman-ish. So how do you promote yourself and your copy without just sounding like, I'm great, hire me?
Focus on the customer. Focus on the problem that you're solving for them. That'd be my main thing.
I would say be authentic. Like, don't try to be someone you're not. Be who you are, because who you are in your brand, which is part of your copy, is who you have to be in person when you meet people. And it sucks when you have to like live half of your life as someone you're not. So the more honest you can be. And I mean, what was it Alex said? The rest of the world's going to try to take you down a peg, so, have confidence in yourself. Sometimes it's not such a bad idea to talk about how great you are, like on an about page, because you want to sell yourself as the best solution to that problem that you've talked about earlier on, and why you are so rad, and they should give you lots of money for doing what you do.
Yeah, Curtis McHale wrote a great post earlier this week, and I'll let me bring up the link here so I can share it in the chat. And by the way, I'll do show notes afterward, so if you're not taking notes, don't work too hard. But anyways, he talked about acting like the expert you are. So rather than selling yourself as a commodity, like, hey, I write code. Sell yourself as, hey, I'm Carrie Dills and I write code. You want to work with me, not just because I write code, but who I am and what I specifically bring to the table. And so figure out what that value, what your unique value is for yourself. And like Chris and Jason said, be authentic. And we're links from that. There's links to that. Chat. Guys, if the timing is delayed or off, I was having, as usual, some internet connectivity issues. If anybody knows any bigwigs at Charter Communication, you can pull some strings on my behalf to get that worked out. Just kidding. Okay, so we got a question here. If you needed to build a custom theme, would you start with an existing child theme or start with the Genesis sample theme? And we've gotten this question quite a few times. But Chris, what's your preference when you're starting a project?
I used to, when I did a lot of theme customizations for clients, I would start with whatever child theme most matched their functionality, because I'm better at front end. And so it would save me a lot of time with trying to figure out custom functions and hooks and things like that. If you're super dev, then I would say go with the Genesis child theme so that you can go nuts on the design.
Yeah, my general rule of thumb is if a theme already exists that can get you, 80% there in terms of layout and functionality, then go for it. If not, and it's kind of a free-for-all, then start with the Genesis sample theme. What I recommend doing if you're doing a lot of custom development is make your own starter theme. And it can be based off the Genesis sample theme, but just the little things that are going to changes, build that out and use that as your base. And if you go to GitHub and do a search for Genesis sample themes or Genesis starter themes, you'll probably see a dozen or more pop up of what other developers are using as their base point. Let's see. So, Jason, a question for you. Using Genesis in your domain name, genesisgoodies.com, did you have to get permission from the Studio Press powers that be?
Yes. Well, yes, I did. I'm not sure exactly that I absolutely had to, but I'm a bit paranoid, so putting Genesis Goodies in the, putting Genesis in the domain name, and then obviously I didn't want, I wanted them to be able to happy to share it, so that was kind of, the rationale behind asking. So, but yes, I did.
Cool. And I mean, it never hurts to ask. That's certainly be the bottom line. If anyone listening is thinking of setting up a domain using the name Genesis. A question from Near for Jason. They're talking about themes serving specific sectors. Am I chatting to myself? Possibly.
Now you're not.
Were you able to hear the question?
No, but I mean I can still answer. No, what was the question?
So specific themes for markets, so health, finance, etc. Are you planning on offering any of those on Genesis Goodies, or are you going to stay more the generic usage?
No. Yes. I'm not going to be staying with generic. Yes, we are. I am focusing on unique. Over the last 5 years or whatever, I'm not a developer, but I've picked up a few things enough to make myself relatively dangerous, and I've broken every Studio Press theme as well as a lot of the by AppFinit and the other guys. So picked up some things, but the point being, yeah, the goal is to do more of a specific solution. My background's marketing, so a lot of people when they need to build their website, one of the first things that they need to do, obviously, is they're going to focus on design a lot of times, but they more need to worry about their message. So kind of helping lead them in the right direction with that is the goal. With the specific solutions, like I have a lawyer theme that's coming out it's a skin, but it'll be coming out next week or so, and then from there, I mean, I have a lot of experience working with churches and local realtors, etc. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, Agent Press, and then they just rolled that new one out, which is gorgeous. And then, obviously, Carrie has a theme for that as well that's absolutely amazing. So, just like everything else she touches is gold. So.
I paid him to say that, in case you're wondering. So Stephanie has a question along those lines on Genesis Goodies. If let's say I wanted to create a skin for Dynamic and then sell it on your site, do you offer that kind of partnership with?
Yeah, currently there's one that's selling on there. Simon Barnett, he did Gridport. I think it's Simon Barnett. If not, I apologize, Simon. But he did Gridport, and I know that we're open to it. We just completely, Eric just completely overhauled the skin setup to make it, and it was largely, to shut me up from whining over the years about, oh, I'm in a box and I can't do this and I want to do this, and, as far as with skins. And a lot of people also, they wanted that sizzle, which, like the little bits of jQuery and some additional PHP, especially Genesis-specific stuff, can provide, and it wasn't real easy to do, with the prior setup. So, yes, it's definitely a possibility. I will be pushing that more. If anybody wants, Jason at JasonHobbsLLC.com. feel free to email me.
Wow,
And,
that's brave. You just gave your email out on national internet.
Yep. I've never been called scared, so and it's on my website and so forth. But the point being, as far as getting started with it, it's really just kind of digging in. We can get you a sample, skin. One thing that I'd recommend is, one thing I did to kind of pick up was, and I got this advice from Gardner a long, long time ago, was I bought, all of their themes and went through them and just kind of broke them apart. And that's how I picked up a lot of stuff. I still do it. Every time they release a new one, I run over there real quick and download it, break it, put it back together, and then start over and then break it and that type of thing. So I'd recommend that as well. And there's a couple of other places that are selling them. I mean, definitely don't worry about, you don't have to sell them on Genesis Goodies or whatever. I mean, it's not like, it's the front page of Dig back in the day. I mean, there's not you can definitely sell them on your own website is my point.
Try like Creative Market. I've heard that's a really good marketplace for Genesis themes. And you get a lot of visibility there. And you actually get to keep 70% of your sales, I saw yesterday. So, I mean, that's a pretty good deal.
Good.
That much traffic for 30%, that's a pretty good return on investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shifting gears a little bit, Chris, there's some questions going on about wireframing and sort of that design aspect, but you can you sum up your entire session in like a couple of sentences or give us some tips on, before we even bust out Photoshop or the browser or get to the wireframing stage, like what's the thought process before you dive in there?
Okay, so I gave a talk at WordCamp Orange County where basically I talked about user experience, and a lot of user experience stuff I've been reading is all about using statistics and analytics and all of this stuff to figure out who your audience is and to figure out what problem you're solving for them and what their pain points are so that you can empathize with them and provide an experience that makes them choose your product over someone else's product. And what I wanted to focus on is really the emotional part of that, how all of that data collection is super, super important. But the goal of it is to distill it down to something that makes people feel good when they use your product. And it's like the difference between Apple or some other product. People are dedicated to that product because they enjoy the experience of using it. Everything from the Apple Store down to iOS stuff. And so I'd been at Disneyland with my family and kind of thought about theme parks as products and roller coasters as features, and how if that was true, then Knott's Berry Farm should be a way better time than Disneyland, but I don't think it is. So I took a lot of the things that Disneyland does to create a good user experience, like user interface and consistency, and what it really came down to is there are these 5 things that user experience has that kind of make it a baseline good product, and the magic comes in this thing called surprise and delight, and how that's what you're really aiming for, because once you know that, then you know how to organize your content or how to create a wireframe or what kind of design strategy you're going to use. And so with the wireframing, you just kind of set up, for me, I'll create a wireframe, and since I work with developers now, I'll do a lot of things like I saw on, I think it's goodux.org, they do little animated GIFs of how different interactions are supposed to act. And so you can kind of think about, while you're doing the wireframes, how the user is going to experience this site, what content you lead them into, how they go through the story, what you're going to say on your call to action buttons, things like that. So that's 40 minutes in 4.
Well, that's such an important process, and I struggle with that because when I think, like, I'm in the process of trying to rebrand and redesign my own site, And like my tendency is just to want to dive in, like, you know, open up the code editor and start going to town. But what you're talking about, like that stepping back and really thinking through, what is it I'm trying to communicate? What is it I'm asking my visitors to do or action to take? And then building out features and design from there. And I think I've too often I kind of start with the code part of it and then work my way backwards, and it doesn't fit as well.
Well, I have to be honest, until like 3 years ago, I had never taken the advice I gave my clients, and I do the same thing. I'm like, all right, I got 24 hours, or I've got a weekend, and I need to get my site going, so let's go. Let's grab a theme, let's go. And there was no time to think. You just throw your content in. And then 3 years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a couple months and I'm going to do what I do for my clients, and I'm going to sit down and treat myself exactly like a client. So I did a whole branch survey. I did user research. I, looked at analytics to find out what things were popular. And so I was able to create a brand and then create a logo design and then create I like to think of design as like a visual language you can use to tell a story. And so I thought about, what best tells the story that I'm trying to tell. And after that was done, my website has evolved and my brand has evolved a little bit, but because I paid attention to what my core values are and who I really am as a business, it's evolved, but I haven't had to change it. And I never had a site for more than maybe 6 months before that I still liked after that. And so I was always redesigning. So I probably spent more time on the let's hurry up and get it done than, I just spent it all together. I spent it up front so I didn't have to spend it down the road.
I think that you should, because I know that you're probably bored and don't have any work to do, maybe write an ebook on sort of the dummy's guide to branding, creating your own brand and your marketing message.
Yeah, I actually have that on my to-do list. It's I plan on offering some more classes because I really love that, and I kind of was reminded of it. I taught a workshop maybe a month and a half ago, and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot that I love teaching. So I have some classes coming up.
Cool. And I just posted over in the chat. If I've missed some questions, feel free to repost. I think there's lots of chatter going on about Illustrator versus Photoshop. So yeah. Oh wow. Comment from Near that you've got a request to remove the responsive aspect of the site. I'd charge like triple for that. I don't know. I had a client email me this week, and I took a screenshot and tweeted it because it was so amazing. She asked me to make the logo smaller. And the world stopped, angels sang, stars aligned, and and world peace happened in that moment. It was amazing.
I'm just stunned into silence.
It did. Jason, with that big Georgia Tech banner behind you,
it's a Georgian banner. Oh.
You're giving like a halftime talk or something.
I'm the quiet halftime coach.
Sweet.
I was just listening to everything she was saying. I was like, man, I wish I'd have been at that talk. That sounded good.
Well, you know what? Those WordPress TV is where you can find a historical archive of some WordCamp speeches. So each word, just shed a little light. WordCamps are powered by volunteers, right? The goal is to not make any money on them. Speakers aren't paid. It's all a giant volunteer act. The video, who then go back later, edit the video, and then eventually, possibly, hopefully, upload it to WordPress TV. So if you've spoken at a WordCamp and you don't see your video on WordPress TV, that's because there was a volunteer along the way that wasn't able to quite make that happen. But Jason Tucker was behind the video at Orange County and just did a stellar job. He's already got a couple videos up, which I think may be record timing. But watch for Chris's talk, and actually my own. I got to talk out. They let me on stage. Those will hopefully be up on WordPress TV soon. So
well, and I actually, instead of posting slides, I did a quick little blog write-up, because I always go back to slides, and it's like, I have no idea what you were talking about with your meme and grumpy cat pictures. You know, it's like, okay, I have absolutely no idea what that has to do with what you're talking about. So I just kind of wrote up a quick bullet point where I kind of summarize it. So if you don't want to sit through 40 minutes, you can, it's somewhere between my 4-minute and my 40-minute.
All right. Let's see. We got a question. Is there a way to change or install widgets in Genesis with plugins, especially header widgets? The short answer is yes. The long answer is, what are you wanting to change? So Genesis ships with a header right widget area. If you don't want to use that, you can unregister it. But it's just a widget area, right? So you can use any widget in that widget area. If you're talking about sidebars, Genesis Simple Sidebars is a great plugin to look at that lets you pretty easily create different sidebars for different pages or sections of your site. So to the person that asked that question, if you had something more specific, feel free to ask. Let's see. Oh, Jenny's asking, how did Chris Lemma get his video uploaded in 24 hours? And that's right, it was Jason Tucker, the man of Jason runs a site called, oh god, what's his URL? He podcasts and does audio for a living. So if you ever want to know like who's the king of video, look up Jason Tucker. And excuse me while I turn off Skype because I'm getting blown up just a little bit. Did you hate that? I don't really hate that. Popular. Wow, the chat room is quiet today. So while y'all drum up some questions for our guests, we're gonna make up some stuff.
Were you waiting on somebody to make something up?
So it's next on the rest. What's that?
Huh? Did you not hear me?
No. There you go. Talking to the mic. That's right, sweetheart.
Thank you. I was just asking if you were waiting on one of us to make up a question, and then somebody asked one as far as splitting the right sidebar.
Ah, yes. Our beloved Gary Jones has actually written a great little bit of code on that. Oh, and somebody already beat me to the punch with a link. I like that we're all on the same page here. But yeah, you can basically take that right sidebar and split it into two separate widgets. I recently did a project where I had the primary sidebar, and then below that created a split sidebar. Let's see. Jason, do you use Genesis Extender?
Yes, I do, actually. No, I don't write code at all. I mean, I'm really good at copying and pasting code and even, like, tweaking the name of the function a little bit. So, yeah, I use Genesis Extender or Dynamic Website Builder if I'm doing anything. If I'm building something for, myself, for a client, for, whatever. It's kind of like a developer in a box. And the way that I've always looked at Eric's products is it's basically the 99% and the 1%. If you go to the economy, you're thinking, there's the 1%, the super duper rich, and there's nothing that's going to ever matter as far as money to them. Everything that's not part of their decision-making process. Well, and when you're talking about WordPress and Genesis, etc., that 1% are those super developers. Norcross and Carrie and everybody else that just eat, sleep, and breathe code, and I've never, ever been like that. And that's the thing with the website builder and with the Genesis Extender. They're not made for the super developers. They're made for, some average Joe that wants to build websites for himself, herself, clients, whatever. So there's a lot of point-and-click design controls, but even more than that, it really lets you, and Genesis Extender and the website builder both help you, use a lot of the stuff that otherwise you're going to have. Either you can pay a developer, become a developer, or you can pay Eric and use his stuff.
All right.
Which is what I did.
Circling back around to the question on header widgets, we got some clarity that we're talking specifically about on mobile or when screen size changes, that header right widget area is still hanging out to the right. So in that case, it's going to be some CSS modifications that you need, not an extra widget. So that when you're in, so you'll want to look at your media queries and at whatever breakpoints, and breakpoints just means pixel size for that device screen. Instead of floating that widget off to the right, try a float none, or set it to full width and then set the margin to 0 auto, and that should center it up for you. Let's see. Purple Baby Hippo has a question on has anyone used Gravity Forms to create user-submitted reviews? No, not reviews. Are you maybe clarify? Are you looking for something that would then be shown on the front end with like star ratings? I think Norcross at Reactive Studios has a plugin.
Yes.
That does that. Yes.
It's actually coded pretty well too, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, imagine.
I know, shocking. 2.1 already came out a couple weeks ago. Genesis 2.1. Sorry, I saw Gardner asked when 2.1 was coming out, so I just wanted to throw him an answer because I know he's probably on pins and needles.
Oh, yeah. Brian, you know what? Studio Press, we've got that under wraps, so we can't release that information to you on the air here, but if you subscribe to the newsletter, we'll let you know when that happens.
Maybe go buy a child theme over there, and we'll keep you up to date.
So I've been watching the Genesis repo over on GitHub.com, and when you're watching something, that means that you get email notifications basically every time one of the Genesis contributors sneezes. And there has been a lot of activity. I mean, they are Nathan Rice and the others have been going gangbusters to get that tidied up. So, Brian Gardner, I don't know when exactly 2.1 will be released, but I have a feeling it is very soon. Let's see. And I was going to look up the link to that ratings plugin, but then I got sidebarred by James.
I thought of one thing as far as the person that asked earlier about the was it the authorship or whatever? The authorship theme. One thing I'd recommend is if you haven't looked, I'd look at Rainmaker. You get all the HTML5 themes and etc. The nice thing about Rainmaker from my, completely uneducated point of view is it allows you to focus strictly on content. And I know with me personally, when I first started building my website, obviously as an author, I'm thinking you're probably focused on content. That's why I say that. When I first started building websites and so forth, I got, sidetracked on all the code and so forth, and never really, did a ton of content because I had to learn all this other stuff. And that's the whole thought process behind Rainmaker is, they'll take care of everything and just let you, bang out great content, keep your, find customers, sell them stuff, make them happy, that type of stuff.
All right. And if you want to know more about Rainmaker, a couple of weeks.
Seth Spears did one, a write-up. There's another person that did one too, but one thing to keep him. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I talking over you?
Just a little bit, but I mean. Yeah, it's cool.
So anyway, Seth Spears and them did it. Obviously, I'm heartbroken over. But they did it, and one thing to keep in mind with Rainmaker though is they're constantly iterating it. So I would bet that there's going to be something coming out in the next week or so, where they just keep dumping new stuff in or refining what's already there and that type of stuff. So, take a look at it. You're going to be excited. If it's actually for you, you're going to freak out and excited. But also, don't be surprised if you log in and, oh, wow, there's a bunch of other stuff that I had no idea, that wasn't in that because it was 2 weeks ago. So.
Yep. Okay, shifting gears slightly. A question from Angela on SEO plugins. She says we are redesigning all websites at work using Genesis, and she is in charge of the SEO. These are a lot of news websites, some with a lot of daily content. I see Yoast has a news plugin. Angela, I haven't looked specifically at his news plugin, but his SEO, WordPress SEO, product is my favorite SEO on the market, and it's free. He also, if it's from Yoast, I would generally say that's worth a checkout. Let's see.
Yeah, he also did the SEO for The Guardian.
SEO for The Guardian. Well, don't try to outrank The Guardian then.
No, I mean, but that's where the plugin comes from, the news plugin, and he has that premium SEO plugin as well. I mean, you can't go wrong in that. If you're looking for SEO plugin with Genesis and that type of stuff, you can't go wrong.
I know that since I started using his plugin, my organic search results have doubled. Because it has that little green light, and so I can go back and rewrite things that I may not have written in blog posts to rank for that keyword. So it's kind of a nice little nag box where you're like, oh, not good enough, and it's like a game too. It's like, I'm getting that thin green.
Same thing. A follow-up on that is scribe content. I mean, I'm totally sounding like I'm in, I'm on the Copylogger team or something, but seriously, the tools that they have are really good. And scribe content, I always play that kind of the game as well, as far as trying to not have any errors or whatever when I'm writing my content and they're grading it. I want to get the highest grade and all that stuff, and that's extremely helpful as well. You couple that with the Yoast, you're going to do well. Because I mean, I get a lot of organic traffic for really no reason except for them. Just people coming.
To be clear, installing an SEO
result on I hate sliders, so go Yoast.
Can y'all hear me all right?
Yeah.
Now.
Hello? Okay, cool.
Ask me second to second.
In and out. Sorry about that. I was just going to add that an SEO plugin isn't magic and doesn't do anything for your site. You still have to do the work of inputting your keywords and optimizing your content. But the visual interface that the Yoast plugin gives is, like Chris mentioned, that red, yellow, green light really helps. Todd is asking, what's the cost on Scribe now?
47, I think, for the lowest plan, but it's baked into Rainmaker, and I think a small plan's baked into Synthesis.
Yes.
So
if you're hosting with Synthesis, you're going to get some. And truly, unless you're just cranking out a crap ton of content, that baby plan is going to be adequate for the average blogger.
For the above average blogger, a lot of times.
I couldn't keep up. I can't generate nearly enough content for that. But it's a great tool as well.
It's gold, Carrie. All of your content is gold.
Okay, so we're going to try an interesting experiment. And this is where, Jason and Chris, I give you a topic to discuss. And while you're discussing, I get off of my neighbor's Wi-Fi and try to hop back onto my own. And I'm thinking of that old Saturday Night Live skit with, Coffee Talks with Linda Richmond. I'm getting a little declipped. Discuss. Dogs going bold.
Oh, Lord.
That's all I got. All right, so dive in. Talk about your thoughts on. Did either one of you just get off the WP Bacon podcast?
Nope.
Or you were so geared up for our time together that it was hard to concentrate.
I just got
Well, Jason was getting his mani-pedi, and the makeup lady was there, so I had to compete. I couldn't.
Had to call her in. Yeah. She was off today, but things happen.
So there was a shower involved.
Jason,
I didn't say this was a special day. I mean.
Okay. Well, tell each of you go, starting with Jason, about your favorite plugin. It can be Genesis specific, but it doesn't have to be. And go, Jason.
Oh, do you have all day? Because there's not a single one. I mean, if I had to choose one individual plugin, it'd have to be, for me, Genesis Extender, because, as I said before, I can't code, so I need the help. And otherwise, that's pretty much, I guess that is the main one. I'm trying to think of, because I use Easy Digital Downloads, definitely. Anytime I want money exchange hands, it involves, Pippin Williamson behind Easy Digital Downloads, great guy and so forth, but great product, great support, all that. So, yeah, I'd have to go with that. I'm going to go with Easy Digital Downloads. Over to you.
Okay, I think my favorite one, like the one I get the most use of right now, is CoSchedule by TodayMade. And it's actually a plugin that works with software as a service. So I pay for their tiny plan. I think it's like $5 a month. But it lets me create, it has a really great user interface that lets me create a content publishing schedule. And it also lets me schedule all my social media posts with it. So like I can do a follow-up the following morning, because I tend to be a late night poster because that's when I like to write. So it usually goes up at 9 when no one's on Twitter. So I'll post it then, and then I'll have it post another one the next morning. You can kind of try different, like you can set up exactly what it's going to tweet. It automatically tweets out the title of your story and a link the first time, and then you can kind of custom craft ones after that. I haven't figured out yet, like if I custom craft a tweet for the same day, it tweets both of them at the same time. But that's because I've been lazy and haven't looked at my options. I haven't read the documentation, which, and it just makes it a lot easier because I have a lot of ideas about stuff I want to write, and it lets me kind of organize it so like I don't write 3 rant posts in a row and people are like, my God, aren't you ever happy? There'll be like a tutorial in there or something else. And so like as far as just like productivity and real use, I love that one right now.
Cool. Hey, you guys, y'all did a great job of holding down the fort. Chris, we did have a specific question for you about what are your thoughts on design trends and kind of what's going to be the next big thing? So like right now, flat design is kind of the thing. I don't know, what's coming down the pipeline?
Well, I actually wrote a post not long ago, this is not a design trends in 2014 post, because while I think there are different styles that usually come from using them in an appropriate way because they were developed for a specific reason, I think a lot of times we forget design basics. And so I'm really hoping that that's what we go back to. I'm hoping that we start worrying more about the strategy behind what we're doing instead of the style we're doing it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Not everyone, though, has the benefit of coming from a design theory background, I suppose. So some of us, and when I say some of us, I mean me, are going to look to other people to see what trends are. Jason, that is ridiculous. To look what trends are, and then follow suit. So a follower as opposed to a leader. But I don't know, for the average person that wants to make sure they're not designing a hideously outdated 1996 website, just generally where are things going?
And there's nothing wrong with following trends and seeing what other people are doing. I think the problem comes in when you use a trend for something it's not appropriate for. So say I have a scrapbooking site. For me to design that in flat design because it's a current trend, it doesn't really match up, right? That's where you can go back to, those of us in the design community call it skeuomorphic, but it basically means stuff that looks like real stuff. And so it makes sense to have, drop shadows because you want to show dimension and texture because of the paper. And so it's all about, like, if you are looking at trends to emulate good design, look at ones that are appropriate for the problem you're trying to solve. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think you bring up a really great point, which you want to use design that's appropriate for the subject matter as opposed to just what's popular, and that goes back to what you were saying about user experience and considering your users. And a scrapbook company is going to be the exact opposite of flat or flat things. So yeah, good point there. And I just want to apologize to everyone in the state of Georgia for confusing Georgia Tech and UGA. Look, I know that if somebody confused Texas Tech and University of Texas, it would, well, I frankly wouldn't care because I don't root for either of those schools. Go Frogs, road to Omaha. But yeah, so my apologies. Let's see, we have a question from Missy Bunny O. Anyone have a good way to have a theme update through the WordPress dashboard without being on .org? Or know of a good tutorial? I don't know of one off the top of my head. I would say be careful about that. Like StudioPress, for example, even if they do a minor slight change to a child theme, they're never publishing, or you're never going to get notified of an update in your dashboard. And the reason is because people use those child themes to customize their site, and if they updated, they would lose their customizations on the update. So I would not that you can't do that. I'm absolutely certain there's a way you could do it, but just look at your use case scenario and make sure that's good. So there you go. Let's see, we got a few more minutes here. If anybody has any final burning questions, go ahead and get those in. And I'm getting ribbed now because even people in Florida know. But you're right there, proximity to Georgia, so I can't compete. All right. So Jason, what are you working on today? What work did Genesis Office Hours interrupt?
I was laying on the beach out back, sipping Mai Tais, and had to come in and working on skins mainly. Everything with me has been, it was very service oriented, and I did not like the whole, we've all heard it, exchanging, time for money. So it's all products now, and there's going to be some marketing stuff that gets mixed in. That's the big thing for me, is just working on some actual content, being able to have the consistent content. But today I was working on a couple of skins.
Cool. Chris, are you still in recovery mode from WordCamp, or are you back in the saddle?
No, I got working again. I took all of Monday off and binge watched Orange is the New Black and felt appropriately, decompressed enough to get back to work. So, what am I doing today? Today I am actually filming a video for my blog about creating a prototype from a wireframe. I'm working on a pro bono project for this really cool lady in Irvine who teaches kids with Down syndrome how to read. So I'm taking, I just spun up a new site, and I'm taking kind of the on a napkin wireframe that I built for her and actually building it in a clickable prototype. So it should be fun. I like the project, so.
Cool.
How about you? What are you working on today?
I am really close to wrapping up a relaunch of a site called travisthemovie.com. and it's a veteran named Travis Mills, and he was injured in Afghanistan and actually is a quadruple amputee. And I did his personal site, travismills.org, earlier this year, and I'm now reworking a site on a movie that's been made about him, documentary style. And it's really great to work with and loving. I like it when I can do things that I feel like matter. So anyways, so working on that today. But it is a rainy day, and there is Orange is the New Black, a new season. So I don't know. I may end up on the couch at some point. We'll see.
I'm telling you, it's a great way to decompress. Your brain just...
Got a question on using sliders, and Mr. Rosenbaum, there are many opinions of sliders. My opinion, I think research shows that they just don't convert very well. I don't think that means that they're bad always, but just rolling through, they have to be very intentionally used in order to be effective. I don't know. Chris, what's your opinion?
I read something... Well, I agree. I've read all the research that people have ad blindness, that no one ever looks past the first slide. But the one that really did it for me is they enable your client to not make decisions about what the most important message on the page is. It lets 5 people on a committee all have their idea be equally important, so none of them really get any focus. They're all diluted. So that's like my main... And there are definitely appropriate places to use them. Like I just, in that class that I taught, we used a carousel on a few of the websites as kind of like a more projects like this. And in that sense, it totally made sense. Or, you know, if you're a photographer and you want to show a bunch of different slides from a shoot, but it's just using it because the client wants to stuff 5 different messages above the fold. I definitely think showing them the research on how ineffective they are and how much bandwidth they add to mobile, if mobile is something that's important to them, just something to consider.
All right. Jason, any extra?
2-second rule and law of one is why I started with sliders and was looking for themes that had a slider and bought a bunch of sliders and so forth. And the big thing for me is the reason that I stopped ever using them, and I really don't even make skins with them at this point, is when people land on your homepage, you have a specific goal that you're looking for them to accomplish, and you don't have much time to basically get them going along the path. And so by not having a slider and just having that initial message to catch them, and then it's just like you always hear, what's the point behind a title of a blog post, to get you to read the first line of the blog post, and then what's the goal behind it to get you to read the next line, and so forth. I started focusing on websites towards that end as well, and at the end of the page, my goal is that you're going to do one thing, not going to give you 3 options. So, and that's what that kind of came about when I that's when I decided not to use sliders anymore. And I read the research and so forth, but I always thought they looked cool, and I always want to be cool. So.
All right. Well, you guys are awesome. And Chris, I'm glad that I finally got to meet you in person this past weekend. And Jason, someday I'll come out for a Georgia Tech game.
Make sure it includes karaoke.
Jason,
I saw the video. I'm sure she can rock some karaoke. Did you do the video? Yeah, you put the video up a while back where you were singing.
Oh yeah, okay. I thought you meant from this weekend. There was some karaoke that went down.
No, I'm sure you can.
It was fierce.
Maracas
and shaker eggs, and it was a good time.
Did she bring her guitar?
Oh no, unfortunately. Next time there's an acoustic set.
Settling.
We actually have something in San Diego called punk rock karaoke with a live band and only punk rock songs. It's pretty awesome to go see.
Jason, where can people go find you, buy your products, and contribute to your retirement fund?
GenesisGoodies.com, and shortly, actually, I'm actually doing a podcast on customersynergy.me. That's going to be starting next week. That's on Rainmaker and so forth. And then there's something I'm doing with the WP Chick and Surefire Web Services, Jonathan. So, and that'll be coming up in next 6 weeks or so. So
sweet. And Chris, how about you?
I am at creativityincluded.com. And my blog is at creativityincluded.com/blog, strangely enough.
All right. I am shockingly at carriedills.com or on
We're
Twitter.
So original.
Twitter at @cdills. Look for some show notes to come out on carriedills.com here in the next couple of days. And also, there's a Genesis Office Hours community on Google Plus if you want to be a part of that. And you can set your email notifications for Google Plus to let you know anytime something is posted there. And I try not to go crazy. I usually just post once a week, and that's an announcement about the show or possibly the show notes. So sign up there if you want to make sure to always be on top of the latest and greatest. And that's it. I appreciate all the conversation over in the chat room. And Jason and Chris, your time. And we will see everybody next week. Bye.